They say the sands of Egypt bury secrets deeper than any tomb, and none is whispered with more fear than the fate of the temple virgins. Young women taken behind sacred walls, never to rejoin the world of the living. Foreigners spoke of it with trembling voices, claiming Egyptian priests subjected these chosen maidens to something worse than death, worse than pain, worse even than oblivion. But the truth, a stranger, older, and far colder than the myths that survived. Long before the Ptolemies, before Alexander set foot on Egyptian soil, before even the most ancient pyramids weathered their first storm, the temples of Egypt guarded rituals so old that even the priests themselves claimed they did not invent them. They merely continued them. One such ritual was the Covenant of the Pure Vessel, a ceremony requiring the presence of young women untouched by the world, selected by omens, dreams, or the inscrutable judgment of statues the priests believed could whisper to them. These girls were called the preserved ones. No one knew exactly what happened to them inside the deepest chambers of the temples, but people knew what it meant when the priests came to a village with a scroll in hand and a veiled expression of sorrow and duty. They knew a name would be called. A girl would be chosen, and she would not return. The story truly begins with one such girl, Neferet, a 16-year-old, known for her striking calmness, the kind of serenity that unsettled those who watched her. She moved with a grace that seemed learned from the river itself. Elders muttered that the gods noticed girls like her. Her mother prayed nightly that they would not. But the temple priests arrived just after sunrise, on a day when the breeze carried the smell of rain. Rain on the Nile was always an omen, always a sign that the sky had taken interest in the earth. The villagers fled indoors, but Neferet stood still as the high priest unrolled the parchment. The moment her name was spoken, birds scattered from the palm trees. Even the river seemed to slow its flow. The villagers bowed, giving thanks. Not for Neferet's selection. No one wished that fate on their child. They prayed instead that the priests would leave quickly and take the omen with them. Neferet walked forward with a composure that made even the priests watch her closely. Only her mother wept. Neferet did not cry. She only whispered, "I will remember your face," before being led away toward the towering temple of Amun. The temple swallowed her whole. Inside those ancient walls, the air shifted, heavy, perfumed, silent. The corridors were lit with braziers that cast trembling shadows across carvings older than written memory. Neferet felt the weight of thousands of eyes as she passed statues of jackal-headed gods, falcon-faced guardians, and crowned queens whose stone gazes seemed to follow her steps. The priests did not speak to her except to give instructions. Do not look behind you. Do not ask questions. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not touch the walls of the inner sanctum. Obedience was not demanded with threats. It was demanded with the reminder that these were not the rules of men. They were the rules of gods, and gods had no mercy. Neferet was led to a chamber unlike anything she had ever imagined. Hundreds of oil lamps flickered on shelves carved with hieroglyphs too old to read. In the center of the room sat a sealed stone door. No hinges, no handles, no gaps, only inscriptions. The priests knelt before it, chanting words in a language older than Egyptian. Neferet watched as the sealed stone vibrated. Slowly, silently, impossibly, it slid open. A breath of cold air rushed out, chilling her to the bone. The chamber beyond was dark, so dark it seemed to swallow the lamplight. Neferet felt a pull, like an unseen hand urging her forward. She took a step, then another, until the darkness closed around her like a shroud. The priests did not follow. The stone door sealed behind her. Neferet found herself in a vast hall where time felt suspended. The air vibrated with a low hum, like the earth was whispering. She sensed she was not alone, though she saw no one. A soft glow emerged from the far end of the chamber, illuminating a massive stone table covered in delicate carvings that moved, shifting like ripples in water. At the center of the table lay a scroll. Her name was written on it, but the handwriting was not human. Neferet reached out. The moment her fingers touched the scroll, the room erupted with light. She staggered back as shadows peeled off the walls. Countless figures formed from darkness itself. These were not spirits, not the dead, not demons. They were something older, embodiments of forgotten gods whose names no longer appeared in temples. Beings erased from history by the rise of newer deities. They had waited centuries for another pure vessel. Now they sang, not with voices, but with emotions. Fear, sorrow, longing, hunger. All pressed into her mind until she thought her skull would crack. She could feel her identity slipping, dissolving, merging with the voices of the ancient ones. This was the fate the priests never spoke of. The preserved ones were not sacrificed. They were bound to preserve the memories of gods erased by time. Bound to carry knowledge no mortal mind could contain. Bound to live eternities inside themselves, never aging, never forgetting, never being fully alive. This was the thing worse than oblivion. Eternal remembering. Neferet fell to her knees as the shadows wrapped around her, not touching, but merging, fusing with her thoughts. Every forgotten god poured its memories into her mind. Wars older than stone, skies filled with unnatural light. Ancient catastrophes wiped from human memory by divine will. She screamed without sound, her voice trapped inside her own skull. The chamber grew brighter as the ritual neared completion. The shadows twisted, forming a cocoon around her, sealing her fate. Outside, the priests bowed their heads. They knew what happened inside, even if they could not see it. Their role was not cruelty, it was containment. Without the preserved ones absorbing these ancient memories, the forgotten gods would rise again and consume the world. The priests did not harm the virgins. They imprisoned them to save humanity. Generations passed before anyone dared disturb the chamber again. When the door finally slid open, centuries later, the next pure vessel stepped inside. Neferet still stood in the center, her body unmoved, her eyes glowing faintly, her mind no longer her own. She had become an anchor for the memories of gods older than creation. Her voice whispered in the darkness, "Remember me before I forget myself." And then she returned to silence, resuming her eternal vigil. That was the truth, hidden behind the legends. What Egyptian priests did to temple virgins was not violence, not death, not cruelty. It was something far more terrifying. They turned them into living tombs of memory. And memory never dies.